Good evening, Western Civ students. Hope everybody is doing well. We have a new chapter coming in our course, in our textbook. That's chapter 8 in Spielvogel. And let me see, I have it here. Spielvogel calls it Late Antiquity and the Emergence of the Medieval World. But what they mean there is what I called in my PowerPoint that is going to be uploaded online for you guys. It's called The End of the Roman World. Medieval world means between the two eras, between the two periods, that is between the ancient world and the modern world. So the world in between. So we have the ancient world. We finished that ancient world with our midterm exam. That is hopefully done now. You're still working online, but we need to move on. So you should be getting through this as soon as possible. So we start with the end of the Roman world. I want to recap exactly what the ancient world was. I'm looking at the slide number 2 in the PowerPoint. It says Roman Empire at its peak. And you have the map of the Roman Empire as it was under Emperors Trajan and Hadrian in 117 AD. And it includes the good chunk of Europe, all the way north up to the Rhine and Danube rivers, and some territories across the Danube rivers, and then it includes the whole of Mesopotamia and Egypt that we studied before. The only part of the ancient world that we studied, and it wasn't part of the Roman Empire, was the Persian Empire that you see on the map in the far eastern corner. So the Roman world united the world around the Mediterranean Sea, which the people there at the time considered to be the center of the world. And we here in the West are heirs to the Roman civilization. And I'm looking at PowerPoint number 3 now, the slide number 3, actually, and I've listed there all the cultures that we studied so far and cultures that have been incorporated into the Roman Empire. So we have Mesopotamia, Tigris and Euphrates River in what is today Iraq and Syria, and part of Turkey, of course. So Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, Carthage, Gaul, which was really part of the Celtic civilization. And in terms of religion, we studied the religions of all these people to some extent, but most importantly for us, religions that are still around, Judaism and Christianity. So all these cultures were incorporated into the Roman heritage and through the medieval world brought to us. In particular, through the medieval world, we usually mean the Catholic Church. So anyways, I have here on slide number 4 the map of the European Union today, and it extends, and it's very comparable to the map of the Roman Empire that you have it on the slide number 2. There are some differences, good chunks of Eastern Europe, territories across the Rhine and Danube rivers were now part of the European Union, but a good chunk of territories are not part of the European Union, like the North Africa, Egypt, Turkey, and so on, so on. So anyways, I told you in the beginning that, you asked me what is Western civilization, and I said, well, I don't want to lie to you, but it's really a history of Christian civilization, or as we call it today, Judeo-Christian civilization. And here now you see that, this is what we're talking about. Um, Talking about Christianity, we have on slide number 5 the heritage of the Roman Empire. Probably the most important thing that the Romans left us is Christianity, religion that is today still predominant in the large parts of Western world. Constantine was emperor from 306 to 337 AD. A couple of important things about Constantine that we already studied, but no harm in repeating as a summary a little bit. He converted to Christianity probably in 312 during that battle at the Milvian Bridge, where he had a vision of a cross in the sky the night before the battle. And the voices that he heard, "In this sign you will conquer." And anyway, so he seems to have converted to Christianity, but he was not baptized officially for quite a long time, practically till almost when he died. And he granted very soon after, in 313, he granted recognition to Christianity as an official religion, as a recognized religion by the Roman state. That was part of your paper on the midterm. Why did Rome persecute Christians? So recognized religion was okay for Christians to practice their religion since Constantine. And his family converted together with him. And with the family, the courtiers, pretty much a lot of people that surrounded the emperor, and this and that, and the population of the empire fairly quickly followed the emperor. Within the next 100 or so years, you can say that the great majority of the population converted to Christianity. It was only in the countryside that the old religion was preserved, and that's why they were called paganus, which mean that those people who live in the country, what we would call rednecks. That's where the term pagan comes from. It's the cities of the Roman Empire, which was the core of the empire. Roman Empire was an urban empire, and those cities converted to Christianity by 400, 500 AD. And it was only, deep into the countryside that you can find the remnants of the old religion. The old gods that served Romans so well for over 1,000 years. Anyways, traditionally, Constantine was considered to be the beginning of the Middle Ages. That's how traditional history books were written. It used to be that the Middle Ages started with Constantine. Lately, in the last 40 or something years, there was this term of late antiquity that was invented. That's why Spielvogel uses the term, late antiquity, as the name of the chapter. It's a term that tries to make this transition from ancient into medieval a little bit softer, kind of to extend the boundaries. But, for our purposes of a short survey of Western civilization, we can say that, medieval period starts with Constantine. And, then the Roman Empire fell. It fell under, so to speak, 3 strikes that came from the outside of the empire. Empire was able to defend itself for hundreds of years, but in beginning with 375, we talk about Germanic invasions of the Roman Empire. And that was the beginning of the end. So, it's important to know that these Germans who started coming into the Roman Empire in 375 and then continued coming in till, the book has it here, till 568. That is when the Lombards, the Germanic German tribe, settled into Lombardy, the area around the city of Milan, which is now suffering greatly under the epidemic of the Wuhan virus. So Lombardy was the Lombard invasion into Italy. North Italy happened around 568 AD. So we have about 200 years of these invasions, Germanic invasions, and I'm looking here at slide number 6. Slide number 6 tells us about various Roman tribes, various German tribes that penetrated into the Roman Empire and settled. So the purpose of the Germans was not to conquer the empire just for the fun of it, but actually they wanted to get in, settle, get some land, and enjoy Roman life. It's fairly obvious that they thought that Romans lived well in their empire, and they wanted a share of that good life. So let me see what I have next. Yeah, that's what I have next here. So looking at this map, we have a couple of important things that you need to remember for your exams and quizzes and such. And that is certain German tribes which came into the Roman Empire, in which part did they settle? That's slide number 7. And we have the Franks in France. The Franks came from the area of Germany around Frankfurt. That's why the city is called Frankfurt. And they crossed the Rhine and settled in what is today France. France is going to be, in the future, these Franks that settled in France, in the future are going to be one of the most important dynasties and states of medieval Europe, under two important medieval dynasties, the Merovingian and the Carolingian dynasty. But, we'll talk about Merovingians and Carolingians when we get to chapter 9, right? The next chapter. So we have Franks in France. We have the Ostrogoths and later Lombards in Italy. Ostrogoths mean Eastern Goths. And we have Visigoths that settled in Spain. Visigoths were Western Goths that settled in Spain. Visigoths were the first actually to start their invasion in 375 of the Roman Empire. They traveled a long way from the Danube Delta in the east of the Roman Empire all the way. They ended up settling in Spain, and Visigoth Spain was also a very, very important medieval state in European history, and it lasted all the way until the Arabs conquered Spain, started conquering Spain in 711 AD. So it lasted for a good 400 years. We have Vandals in Africa. Vandals in Africa. They have a bad reputation. Vandalism, the word vandalism comes from Vandals. They settled in Africa, and they were probably the least integrated Germans into the Roman society. In other words, of course, the fall of the Roman Empire was a tragic thing for the Romans, but it wasn't as dramatic as one might imagine. These people, namely Franks, Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Vandals, settled in parts of the Roman Empire and try to, run those places, not just as conquerors, but as some people who actually interacted with the Romans. And we have finally Angles and Saxons in Britain, tribes that came across the North Sea from the areas of northern Germany and Holland, across the sea and landed into what was the Roman province of Britain. So, those are important. Those are future European states: France, Italy, Spain, and Britain, that play a very important role throughout history. Anyways, that's German invasion. I said to you that the Roman Empire. Sorry, the Roman Empire fell under the rule: 3 strikes and you're out. So the first strike was the German invasion, the second was the Slavic invasion, and the third was the Arab invasion. I still have a few more slides over here about German invasion. I just wanted to show you here on slide number 8, 2 slides of the rivers Rhine and Danube. Actually, the first map that I have here on slide number 8 is a slide of a cruise that you can have, a river cruise that you can take in Europe and travel from the mouth of the Rhine. The Rhine River empties into the North Sea in Holland, south of Amsterdam, and from there you can travel into Germany. From Germany into Austria, from Austria into Hungary, from Hungary into Serbia, from Serbia into Bulgaria and Romania, and then the Danube empties into the Black Sea. So this river that they practically in antiquity they almost came together, Rhine from the north and Danube from the east. They create a natural boundary between the Roman Empire and the Germanic tribes that lived to the north of this line. So that's why I have this map for you to give you an idea of this frontier that it's important for European history. I also have slide number 9. I have a little picture of the River Rhine at Düsseldorf, the huge city in Germany. Anyways, after I'm looking at slide number 10. After the success of the Germanic invasions, we have a bit of the Roman comeback, and that's slide number 10. Emperor Justinian, who was a Roman emperor from 527 to 565. Namely, Germans managed to conquer the western parts of the empire: Italy, France, Spain, North Africa. But they failed in conquering the eastern part of the empire, and that's mostly because of Constantine. Constantine built a new capital, Constantinople, which is today Istanbul. And you see, where Istanbul is. It's actually on the straits that connect the Black Sea and the Aegean Sea and the Mediterranean. And it's a very strong fortification that prevented actually the Germanic tribes forever getting through. So the eastern parts remained intact, and actually the eastern parts, being blessed with this vision of Constantine, that the defensive, plan of Constantine to use the city walls of Constantinople. They didn't consider even Germans the main enemy of the empire. They thought the main enemy was still in the east, the Persian Empire that we left somewhere in the past, and it keeps coming back, and it will keep coming back as modern Iran even today. So the Eastern Empire is often called the Byzantine Empire. The reason for it is the capital was in Constantinople, but before Constantinople became Constantinople, it was actually a small village, Greek village, that was called Byzantion, and that's why it's often called the Byzantine Empire. But the Byzantine Empire and Justinian tried to reconquer the West, and Justinian managed to do that. He conquered, took back first North Africa from the Vandals, and then tried to take Italy from the Ostrogoths, and that was quite a bloody war that lasted for several decades. And finally, he managed to land his troop in Spain. So that's what you see on this map. But by the end of the reign of Justinian, that was over. The revival of the empire was over. Justinian was a great builder, and most importantly, you have a picture on slide number 11. He built what was the largest church at the time, largest Christian church at the time, the Church of Holy Wisdom. The church is called Hagia Sophia in Turkish, which is Greek, actually, in Greek. Hagia Sophia, the Church of Holy Wisdom, and it's a church dedicated not to a person of Sophia, called Sophia or Wisdom, but it's dedicated to Jesus as the wisdom of God. So that's a kind of a footnote on the picture of Holy Wisdom Church built by Justinian that we're looking at, slide number 11. What came next were the Slavic invasions, who started pretty much as soon as Justinian died. Slavs were also tribes that lived to the north of the Danube-Rhine frontier, north of the Roman frontier, and here you have a map of their movement into the Roman Empire. They crossed the Danube and settled in what is today called Balkan Peninsula, with the Greece and other areas that you find here on the map. So I said Roman Empire went down with 3 strikes and you're out. Germanic invasion, Slavic invasion, and Arab invasions coming up. But before that, I have a couple of things about the Catholic Church. As the Roman Empire fell, what preserved Roman culture the most was the Catholic Church. In that sense, we have 2 people that I want to mention here. One is Pope Gregory the Great, one of the great early medieval popes. He was a pope from 590 to 604 AD. He was the son of a Roman senator, and he himself became a prefect of Rome at the age of 30. But he went to a monastery, a Benedictine monastery. That's another person that I need to talk to you about, Saint Benedict. But let me finish first about Saint Pope Gregory the Great. He then, entered back into public life and became a pope. And he's a pope that is often credited with the Christianization of Europe. He sent missionaries all across Europe, and those missionaries built a network of monasteries that would try to maintain Roman culture and Roman language. Here on the left side, you have a manuscript illustration that was done in manuscripts. The books were at that time written on sheepskin. And here you have Pope Gregory the Great is credited with the invention. Let me find that here. With the invention what is called the Gregorian chant. Gregorian chant is the chant that is still used in the Roman Catholic Church. Here I have what it looks like. And according to tradition, the Gregorian chant was invented by Pope Gregory the Great. It wasn't. That's a bit of a legend. It was a traditional Roman way of singing. And here in the manuscript you have Pope Gregory the Great listening to the dove, the bird that is on his right shoulder. The Holy Spirit telling him, how to chant. I have here a piece of chant. So you can hear what it sounds like. Salve Regina, Mater Misericordiae, vita dulcedo, espes nostra salve. A te clamamus, exules filii Eve, a te suspiramus, gementes et flectes, in hac lacrimarum vale. So, that's the chant that was created in the late antiquity period and is still in use today in the Roman Catholic Church. So I mentioned before that Pope Gregory became a monk when he encountered Benedictine monks, and then brings us to Saint Benedict, who lived a little bit earlier. He was the founder of Benedictine monasticism. He lived from 480 to 547 AD, earlier than Pope Gregory the Great. And here on slide 14 we have a picture of a Subiaco Abbey, the first monastery that he founded, and he later founded another monastery called Monte Cassino. And then Benedictine monks founded thousands of monasteries all across Europe. Those monasteries preserved Roman culture and Roman ways throughout the Middle Ages. There was something I want to say, it escapes me now. Right. Monasticism is a very interesting phenomenon. It, of course, originated in the Roman Empire, in the eastern parts of the Roman Empire. There were a lot of monks in the east. That was what, those Greeks were doing. And they would, the religious people would go to look at the picture here of the Subiaco Abbey. It's actually built around a cave in the hills. So, the monks these people would go. Monks means to be solitary, those who are alone. Kind of people who practice social distancing, right? Is that the word? And the practice of monastic practice started in Egypt, where religious people will go into desert and kind of want to be alone and left alone within prayer and other things that monks do. And Saint Benedict came in contact with these Eastern monks, but he sort of formalized their structure, writing what is called the Rule of Saint Benedict. The Rule of Saint Benedict. Let me add it. Rule of Saint Benedict. It was a monastic rule, that is the regulations for the monks, how to live, what to do, and these sort of things. And it was considered a very moderate rule. It wasn't extreme, don't do crazy things. Just pray sort of like 5 times a day and things of that sort. So that's about Benedictine monks. We'll continue with this stuff when we get to chapter 9. We are switching now to Islamic conquest or the Arab conquest, which in this case is one and the same thing. The early Muslims were Arabs. And then other nations embraced Islamic religion. So Islam originates from Arabia. The best guess is that Muhammad, the prophet and the founder of Islam, was born somewhere around 570 AD. That is basically right after Emperor Justinian died. And he started his preaching in the city of Mecca, which was a traditional Arabic sanctuary city. That is a place where Arabic tribes from Arabia would come together, worship traditional Arab gods, the moon god, the sun god, and so on and so forth. And there, Prophet Muhammad started preaching this new religion that we call Islam. And Islam means submission to God. And therefore, followers of Islam are called Muslims. And the word Muslims means those who submit to God. The early message of Islam was relatively simple. The message of Muhammad was basically, the end of the world is coming, submit to God. That's in a nutshell what it was. And then as the religion developed, other layers of Muslim tradition developed. It's very hard to define Islam, and it always has to be defined in contrast with Judaism and Christianity. Islam has a lot of common elements with both Judaism and Christianity. Particularly with Judaism, it's a belief with one God. It doesn't approve of Christian teachings that, God had a son who was born and who died on the cross, resurrected, and so on and so forth. That part Islam doesn't approve, in the same way that Judaism doesn't approve that part. But Islam recognizes both Moses and Jesus as great prophets of Allah. Allah means God in Arabic, so and then conflict started to develop between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Muhammad had to go to Medina. He was expelled out of city of Mecca as, some crazy prophet who talks crazy things. And in Medina, he found a couple of Jewish tribes who he tried to convert to Islam. It didn't really work. They resisted bitterly. And Muhammad hated it. And therefore, from that time till today, Muslims and Jews don't get along. So then a story was created that Islam is actually the original religion. That's what Muslims claim. That basically from Abraham onwards, these people are all Muslims. But that the Jews and Christians corrupted the message of Abraham, the original message of Abraham, the first Muslim, as Muslim put it. And Muhammad is then the last of the prophets, the seal, what they call the seal of the prophet. There won't be any prophets after Muhammad. They're prophets, Abraham and Moses and Ezra and John the Baptist and Jesus and Maryam and so forth. Those count as prophet. But the last prophet is Muhammad, and his revelation is return to the purity of the original Abrahamic message. That's what Muslims claim. So when Muhammad came back from Medina into Mecca, he conquered the city, cleansed the city of the traditional Arab idols, and imposed Islam upon the city of Mecca. And the old Arab pagan sanctuary, the Kaaba, he made that into a Muslim sanctuary. It is still today part of the Muslim pilgrimage that every Muslim has to perform at least once in his lifetime. And Muhammad and his descendants later claimed that this was the place where actually Abraham was ordered to sacrifice his son Ibrahim. Not Isaac, but Ibrahim. If you remember in the Bible, in the Jewish Bible, in the Christian Bible, you have a story of Abraham sacrificing Isaac. God asks Abraham to, kill Isaac to show that he is faithful to God's commands. Well, Muhammad says that this is wrong, that the sacrifice was supposed to be the sacrifice of Ibrahim, and not Ibrahim, the father of the Arabs, and not of the Jews. And that's why, when we're doing these chapters about Jewish religion, I was torturing you with these details. So now these stories come very, very handy. Muslim religion had an electrifying effect on the Arabs. Arabs were people who, like the Germans and the Slavs, lived outside of the borders of the Roman Empire, in the Arabian Peninsula, in the deserts of Arabia, and along the Red Sea. Islam united those tribes, and once Muhammad died, they went on a march Muhammad died in 632 AD, and by 711 Muslim Arab troops conquered the whole of North Africa. I'm looking at the map at, let me see what's the slide number here. Slides number 15 and 16. I'm particularly looking at slide number 16 because that's the slide that has the years on it. So we have 622. That's the first year of the Muslim calendar. Muhammad was preaching before 622 in Mecca, but in 622 he had to run away to the city of Medina, and he hid there in the city of Medina. The people of Medina protected him, and actually there is a Muhammad's house that still is within the great mosque of Medina. That's where Muhammad eventually died. But the Muslim calendar take this year of flight when Muhammad ran away from Mecca to Medina as year one of their calendar. So that's this is called Hijra, and so the year 622 AD is the year of Hijra, the years of Muhammad's flight to Medina, in the year number one of Islamic calendar. And you look at the conquest that the Arab tribes united by Islam accomplished within the next 100 years, and it's absolutely amazing. In 711, the Arabs were at the borders of China in the east and at the borders of the Visigoth kingdom in Spain. So that's the stuff that we're going to talk about more next time around. Just wanted to show you a slide, the last slide number 17. That's the famous Battle of Tours, happened in 732, where the French king Charles stopped Arab Islamic armies and prevented them from conquering France. So it's an important part of our story, because if that didn't happen today, Europe would be part of the Islamic world and not part of the Christian world, or the world of the Western civilization that we were talking about before. So that's pretty much our lecture for today. And that's what we're going to do tomorrow on Tuesday. I'll upload this lecture and you have it. And you hopefully listen to it carefully many times until you memorized everything and everything is clear. So the end of the Roman world, 3 strikes: Germans, Slavic invasions, and Arab invasions that brought down the Roman Empire. By the year, 732, 711 AD, it was all over. There are people who claim that, the Roman Empire somehow continued to exist in one form or the other further, especially as the Byzantine Empire, this Greek part of the empire. But the Byzantine Empire, after the Arab conquest of the Middle East, was really only a Greek state and not a multinational empire that we had in the beginning. So anyways, that's about what we have here today. And I wish you well. Goodbye.